And as the universe was, as it plays out for all of us, I had no idea that our lives would intersect in the way that they have, which is just sort of absurd and extraordinary. So, yeah.
Tatiana?
Yeah, no, I don't remember where I was. I just remember seeing clips and pictures and yeah, and seeing Jeff at some point in passing, but not knowing anything about his story.
So I guess maybe 2 years afterwards, something like that. How did you first learn they were gonna do a movie about Jeff's story, and how did each of you first become involved? Maybe we can start with you, Jay.
Well, it was it was a quiet story, so it didn't make like this huge loud splash. I think it sort of came to me in a very early draft that John Polano had written, and it was before there were any filmmakers on it. Kind of snuck to me, and I read it and I thought, okay, this sounds like it's going to be sad, and then I started laughing like 3 or 4 pages in, and I was so surprised at how I fell in love with Jeff kind of immediately as a character that John had written. And then there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of things in it, but deep down inside it was the essence of Jeff that really got me. And then it's been a very long journey from that one moment.
Well, because you also became a producer of it.
Yeah.
When that was really early on as well.
Yeah, well, what happened was I came onto it as an actor. I asked if I could do it, and then they said we want to find a filmmaker first, and they found David, and then David came back to me, and then just the nature of the material, I think people kind of went, well, I don't know if we want to make this movie, and it started to slip and almost fall apart. And I had just started a production company with this wonderful company name called Bold, who I made this movie Nightcrawler with, and I said, hey guys, do you want to make this movie? And they were read it within literally the day, and they said yes. And so right at that moment, we started producing the movie as well.
That's great. And Tatiana, how did it cross your radar initially?
For me, it was a very standard kind of audition process. I sent a tape in, and then the non-standard part was I got to do an hour-long session with the Jake Gyllenhaal in a room where we were just sort of in a dark room playing for an hour, with the casting director. And yeah, I was just really taken by the story and by the dynamic and the relationship and how surprising the humor was and the complexity of it was.
Did you guys know each other before this, or is that what that hour was about? Because chemistry is such a key element of this movie. If you guys didn't have it, it could have gone south very quickly. So was that evident in that first hour together?
It was to me.
Yeah.
I mean, she just came in and she was, just beyond prepared and more prepared than me and ready to go. It's felt that way from throughout the entire process, and just bold and brave in a way that I know that you would probably contradict in what you're going to probably say next, because she has her own set of fears. But working with her from the very beginning was like, I knew that there was someone who would be able to go to those places that Jeff and Aaron, well, would try to go to those places Jeff and Aaron went to, and someone who was just going to go. And there's this line that she says in the scene in the car where she says, "That doesn't scare me, Jeff." And that's kind of like the microcosm of you in a scene. Like nothing really seems to scare you. So that was what it felt like.
That's great. Well, I mean, how many people have played 12 characters or whatever in an hour? So I mean, she's a chameleon. Okay, so how much time did each of you get to spend with Jeff and Aaron in the run-up to the production starting, and what were the most valuable takeaways of that?
For me, it was a lot less time than Jake spent with Jeff. I spent a few hangs with Erin, kind of chatting with her about life and her experience and her perspective. And for me, it was about gleaning an essence from her and taking. It's like an ethereal thing I can't really even define, but it was like a sense of her and a sense of how she could get through this, what kind of strength that took, and this sort of, I think it was really tied in with her athleticism, this emotional stamina that she has. That's a physical thing, it's a mental thing, that there's a stability to her, even in her doubt and in her questions and in her wanting to get out. She still plows forward with this kind of determination, and that's, to me, very much Erin.
I mean, I spent over a year with Jeff, on and off. We met, and then I would go back and forth from Boston to New York. I racked up a good number of miles on my truck, getting back and forth, and found that time in between actually to be really meditative and really helpful in trying to figure out, a lot of times just really trying to digest what I had experienced with him. You know, the first few meetings we had were very overwhelming for me. The very first one was a little crazy in that I kind of was walking through the door to this Italian restaurant to meet Jeff and Erin for the first time, and I just like, something in my body made me stop and go like, you can't do this, you're a fraud. You know, it was like this moment, and I'm like, what are you doing? This is absurd, you're absurd, you know, and I walked through the door anyway, so, and then he just became my friend. So over a year, he basically became my friend, and he showed me all of the roughest parts of himself, and I've tried to share that with him, and for me it takes a long time to get to know anybody, particularly character. In this case, it was about a year, and now he's just my friend, and we talk every day.
Were these guys on set at all during it? I wonder if so, what that would have been like for you. That would, I would think, add an element of additional pressure, or I don't know if pressure is even the right word, but were they there?
Erin was there twice. Yeah.
Twice, yeah.
Jeff came the first day, and then never came again.
It's not as exciting as it sounds.
Yeah, he was bored.
There was a drive-by at one point where I like tried to force him to come, and then he like said he came, but he really just like drove by. You know, it's surreal, and I think that was where we met. You know, we all met there in this strange vortex, you know, of reality meeting fiction in a space where those wounds were still there, and I think they're sort of was still processing a lot, and they entrusted both of us with something that is very, very scary to show people, particularly when wounds are still healing, and they're two extraordinary people. They're really incredible. I wish they were here, because they're much more interesting than both of us, but they are really, really incredible.
So, kind of, if you can tell us what it was like for you guys, just on a logistical level, where did you shoot, how long was the shoot, and I'm kind of praying, I know it's not usually the case, but just for your mental health, that some of it was in sequence, a lot of it, hopefully, no? No?
I mean, we were making this movie, it was interesting. It keeps showing us so much stuff about the universe, this movie, even today. You know, there's something about these things, and they're their own organism, and they're, you know, we were 2 weeks out from shooting or something, and Nicholas Stern, our line producer, came in the production office and he said, I have some not awesome news. Is everybody sitting down? And like, for a movie like this, when someone says that, it's not just that, it's like what happened in the world, you know? And we sat and he said, so, it looks like the Bruins aren't going to make the playoffs. And I was like, fuck you, man. And I like walked out. I was like, I hate hockey anyway. And I was like, I don't hate hockey. I don't like golf as much. I'm sorry. But I was like, what is that? He's like, well, we're going to have to probably have to shoot the Bruins game sequence on the first day. And we're going to have to shoot that elevator scene on the first day. And so everybody went like, oh my God, all right. And we decided to do that. And we went up the first day at, you know, TD Garden, and we set up and we put out all these APB around the city saying, if you're going to the Bruins game, stay, because we had no money to have extras there, really. You just stay. And Jeff and I did an announcement, and then the Bruins lost that night. And we were all like, oh no. And we all got ready. I was in the wheelchair, and Tatiana was behind me, and we ran out on the ice, and 3/4 of the stadium had stayed. knowing that it was for Jeff.
Wow.
And that night was kind of encompassed it all. Like, you thought you were headed towards failure, and really there's this extraordinary support of a community that was inexplicable and really beautiful.
Wow. This is, I guess, a sensitive topic, but I just have to ask because I think it's you know, actors, everybody would be curious to know, how were you able to, how does it work with the visual effects on something like this? I know it's existed at least since Forrest Gump, as the movie reminds us, but I mean, it's seamless. It's an amazing thing to see.
Well, it's a massive community. I always think about the community of people who rallied around Jeff, who helped him when he lost his legs, and then I think about the creative community that we all have whenever we're creating anything, and that we obviously can't do anything alone, no matter what it is, no matter what anybody says. I just don't think that's ever possible. And so it was a mix of a lot of in-camera work and a lot of visual effects. We had an incredible visual effects team, this company called Micros, which has since disbanded, but they do beautiful work that never really impinges on the scene. They always said to us, what do you want to do, and we'll make it work. But we also had an incredible makeup department headed by Donald Moat, who's an amazing makeup artist who I've worked with many times. And we devised these prostheses, the legs, the makeup prostheses that were molded off of my legs, designed to look like Jeff's. And they fit over on top of my actual legs, and then my legs would fit underneath the chair or in holes in the floor. The bathtub scene, for instance, is a perfect mix of all of it. Sometimes I'd wear green socks and I'd be in a scene with Tatiana and I'd just be like this. So when you're like fighting with someone like this, there's this strange sort of thing that happens. But I think we like walk this line, and Jeff always made us feel like it's all sort of absurd what we do. He always makes fun of me, and then it's also extraordinarily important. So, but yeah, it's a team. But there are holes in that bathtub. I'm wearing prosthetics, and then there are holes in the wall. There were like 15 different shots that were a mixture of all different things.
I want to ask both of you about a scene that I assume must have been really tough for both of you, and also at the same time was done in a visually beautiful way, I think thanks partly to Sean Bave, your cinematographer, and that is the scene where the wrappings are coming off the legs for the first time, and the camera doesn't really move, and we're seeing you come in and out, and you're having to go through what you're going through, and I just wonder what you can share about what went into that scene.
Yeah, I mean, that scene, watching it in the film, surprised me because I remember being there on the day, us working through it. But it was a new scene for us too, wasn't it? It was like thrown at us that day from a very earlier draft of John's script. And I just think it's a microcosm of the film a little bit, in that, you feel Jeff in this pain, kind of looking at something that we don't know what's there. And then Aaron comes in, and I was surprised when I saw that. And I think it's just a testament to, like we've said, Dylan, how do you say his last name? Tishner. His editing, letting it sit there for that extended period of time where you really have to sit with Jeff. You're in his perspective, and you're feeling it with him. And it's not even about the legs as much as it's about this pain of this connection and this deep need. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, on the day, David and I talked a lot about not having, did we really understand? We understand the feeling and the sadness of a hospital. We understand that. We understand the event, but the idea of the pain, the physical pain and the emotional pain that Jeff goes through, and particularly the very isolated, really beautiful support of Aaron for Jeff. And we were in that hospital for about 10 days, and we would pick things up all the time. And we just had a conversation one day where we said, hey, is there a scene like where we can see that? Like, we've heard about the sutures, and we called up John Polano, the writer, that morning and said, hey, John, do you have any ideas? And he said, I actually have a scene from the first draft that was maybe a little bit too much. We said, we'll send it. So he sent it to us, and there were two things in it that were so incredible that really inspired, I think, all of us on that day. One of them was this idea that Jeff didn't want to look. And which to me, in my mind, after all that time spending with him, I thought, how could he not see that but he didn't want to look. The uncovering of his vulnerability and his mess and the unknown and all of these things, and then this huge strength in this woman and friend and partner who was there, who wasn't afraid to see, but he didn't want her to see either. David just set up the camera, and just that idea carried us through for 20 minutes of a take. I mean, that take, we did 2 takes of that, and that went on 40 minutes long of that. And I will tell you, everybody I think was firing on all cylinders in that space. And that's the real Dr. Kalish who amputated Jeff's legs talking to us. And those are the two of the real nurses that he worked with talking about all that. So the reality of that space was true to us. And Jeff and Aaron were there with us, I feel like, in that space. And you are fucking incredible in that scene. And you were so incredible to be with in that moment. And just alive in every moment. And it was really fun. With all the pain and all of that discovery, it was everything you dream of as an actor. To have a partner like that, people capturing it, and the space to do your work, it was, yeah.
It's a great scene. So last 3 quick things from me. Maybe we'll take a few from these folks, and then we'll go on our way. But I just want to ask you when Jeff and Aaron first saw the movie, and how that was for you guys, for them, that might have been interesting. So I think it was Toronto.
Well,
right?
No. Yeah, they saw it all together. It was hard getting them. It was like herding cats, that family, to get them into it.
Oh, it was the whole family.
Holy shit, the whole family saw it together. That day was an absolute, I don't want to remember that day. Organizing that day was a mess. Just ironically getting Jeff to lock down a date was actually also very funny. I was supposed to be there 3 times in a row, and he kind of canceled every time. It was so funny. And so true to form. And then when he finally locked down, I couldn't be there, so David Gordon Green was there, and Todd Lieberman was there, and John Polano was there, and apparently Patty went in and out 5 times to smoke a cigarette 5 times in the middle of the thing. And I called Jeff before, and I was like, hey man, let me know what you think. And he's like, okay. Afterwards, we were just texting. I said, what do you think? And he just wrote, good job. And then he didn't write me back for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh fuck. And then apparently later on, because I later learned he was processing all of it. And then Patty and Aaron walked out apparently. Do you know this thing? Patty and Aaron walked out, and Patty goes, she's like, what do you think? She's like, my apartment is not that dirty. And then Aaron and Patty were hugging, and they're like, we never fought like that. Jeff was like, are you fucking kidding me? So it's just, it was, and very complicated for all of them, but, Patty still loves me, so that's a good sign.
And I guess in some ways you've answered the next question, which is just how are they doing today? I know it's been a while since you guys wrapped the movie, and probably since that screening, so what's the latest?
I mean, yeah, well, Jeff is in Florida right now, as we speak, getting refitted for sockets for his prosthetics. He leaves he's there from the 4th to the 10th, and he's with Nora, their daughter. Erin is in Boston. She's working, I think,
Back to school. Actually, she went back to school, yeah.
And Jeff is doing. Jeff has grown more than any person I know, anyone in my life. He's 15 months sober. Yeah. He is going back to school. He wants to work for Autobach, Genium, who designed his legs. He wants to be like a mechanical engineer and learn those type, right? That's what they're called. He's going back to school for that. And he's just there for Nora in every way. We've had so many stops along the way that he's wanted to come support the movie, but he always, he drove back very late at night to go take Nora to the doctor the next morning. If there's anybody that he shows up for, and if there's any proof of fact of what an incredible man he is, it's his daughter. And he's the funniest, most loving human being. If he were here, he would make all of you feel so good to be alive. He's really fantastic, and he loves giving me shit. So yeah, they're very good.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do 3. Straight to the question, please. We're gonna spread them out. Let's start I saw somebody in the back. Anyway, there, please. Yep.
So first of all, amazing is not the right word, but amazing job, both of you. I was so moved. It was so beautiful and great. My question is, it's I guess more toward Jake, but you can answer as well, Tatiana, if you affected. By limiting yourself and cutting off certain parts of your own senses in the same way to get to this character, what did you learn about your own humanity or anything else in that process?
Well, just the physical world changes in height, and there's an infantile state that you're immediately thrown into, which for an adult, and I think particularly somewhere an adult male, there's questions of ego and strength and conventional ideas of strength that you're constantly forced to face, And it was really interesting for me in that space to always be below everyone. I really don't have much of an ego, so it was difficult, but ultimately fine, very easy. It was fascinating, and to have everybody's hands on you like a child. And I think also being restricted, for me, there's this thing that kept happening early in pre-production, which was like, well, how do we make the wheelchair as comfortable as possible for you? And I was like, why? And there, I think for me, I was always struggling with how do I get as close to Jeff's experience as I can? How do I get to understand that, how do I portray that? And every time I go far, I know I could keep going because nothing I could do would ever compare. So, Jeff and I talked a lot about how his parents were on top of him like a child because they just wanted to be and they had to be. What would you do? But that what it did was just reduce him back down to this childlike state. And he struggled very much with wanting to be there because I think there's a part of him that's really sort of adolescent that he has to grow up to. So he's like, oh, I feel comfortable here being coddled. But then having to grow up to be the person for his partner and also for his daughter. So I don't know, in that physical state, there was just a lot of doubt created, and that was being stuck in that space. Also just maneuvering. David created a space, every space was small, so it was fucking impossible to get around because it wasn't, like that bathroom was impossible for us to maneuver. We couldn't get that wheelchair into the bathroom and fitting it through the door, and then trying to get in, and there's this wonderful moment where your dress gets caught and like we're trying to pretend like it, and all of that stuff was, as an actor, really helpful, but very frustrating, very, very frustrating.
Please.
First off, I'd like to say thank you. Incredible job. Both of you. You make me feel really proud to be an American again. I want to say. I'd like to know who came up with the idea of casting Miranda Richardson. She was brilliant.
Like all it was Tatiana's idea.
I did all the casting. Cast myself.
It was like, it was a mix. It's a very hard character to cast. And there were a lot of sort of people that were, I guess, there were sort of more conventional ideas. There were ones that had sort of played similar roles. And then we all had a discussion, David Gordon Green, Todd Lieberman, Reba Marker, and myself, and then the casting team. And, you know, I said to everybody, being an actor in a producerial role, I just said, you know, what I experience is if you're a good actor, you can do anything. So why don't we look at some of these amazing British actors? And we went through kind of a list of people, and Miranda came up, and I went, oh man, she is so hot. Because I remember as a kid, and I always had a crush on her, and David was like, I love that. And then we basically spent about 3 weeks sort of trying to woo her and call her and write her emails and tell her how amazing she is and she should do it, and she said yes.
And so you passed on the L.
No. But yeah, I mean, I think.
Yeah, this person right there, please.
Hi, my name is Jasper. My question for you guys is, what would you say, personality-wise, what would you say is the biggest difference between yourselves and Aaron and Jeff?
Erin is very selfless, and there's like her work and the way she is in life and the way she is with her daughter. There's a massive selflessness that is not natural to me as an actor. No, she's just in like this incredible person who serves and who supports and is fiercely protective of her family, which I relate to, but she's got it in spades. Yeah.
Jeff just doesn't judge. There's not a bone in his body that judges anybody. I can't believe it, you know. I'm with him, and I just cannot believe it. And I think that was in him way before this event. And also just his extraordinary sense of humor in the face of so many absurd things. He constantly makes fun of me because, you know, like I'll wander around, be like, oh, I'm so tired today, man. He's like, I have no legs. So it's always that, and like I am humorless and I'm full of judgment, so that's how we're doing it.
Well, that's a good place to end.
There you go. Good night, everybody.
Thank you guys so much.